half Halloween, or let's say a second Halloween of the year. It's the spring Halloween, otherwise known as Walpurgis. If you're new, do subscribe and check out the rest of our spooky playlists and videos. I'm Morticia, and Gomez and I are going to be explaining the general gist of Walpurgis, and there will be links below for further reading if you would like to explore it. From a witchy perspective, it's another night when the veil is thin. It's April 30th. Exactly halfway through the year from Halloween, which is obviously October 31st. Halloween is the ending of the year. It's the end of fall, and it's leading into winter, technically, for many cultures. And Walpurgis is the end of spring, beginning of summer. And the next day after Halloween is obviously Day of the Dead in many cultures. And the next day after Walpurgis is May 1st, and that's May Day. It's fertility. So it's like the polar opposite of Halloween. And as the zodiac cycles turn, it gives the same sort of energy as the polar opposite. Many extremes kind of end up in the same place, as you know, theoretically, mathematically, in life, just so many ways. If you're looking at two extreme views, you know, they always end up going on 180. And so that's why half Halloween is Walpurgis ending up in the same kind of spiritual energy as Halloween. So Walpurgis is another night when the veil is thin between the world of spirit and our world, just like Halloween. It was referred to in Middle Ages as the night when the witches ride. It's the night when they supposedly went to Brocken Mountain to hang out with the devil, basically, and tell him all the evil deeds they had done the other 364 days of the year, as it were, which probably was a pagan reference to one of the horned gods, Cernunnos, or one of the others, and Christianity always made those old deities the devil. So there's so many connections that you can take it back to. And but it's definitely a night when people dress up. Even in Germany still, they dress up in costume, play tricks, have mead and other alcoholic beverages, and that sounds very familiar, right? Because if you look up Halloween documentaries, the night of Samhain is the same way. They dress up in costume, play pranks, adults have drinks, go door to door and hang out and play games and whatnot, even in like medieval times up to now. So it's very, very similar. And if you are magically, paranormally inclined, it's a very powerful night for magic and workings and whatnot, because again, the veil is thin. Even right now, like in September and October, the veil is thinner for psychic work. It's always easier to access these abilities. And the same thing with like now in April going up to May, it's always very much easier to access your abilities. And if you're going to get psychic readings and whatnot, if it's a good psychic, they're probably going to give you a clearer one. And your own intuition is probably going to be more clear. Your dreams could be more vivid because you are closer to spirit this time of year. And it has, the Walpurgis itself has a lot of interesting myths and legends and lore and info behind it. Gomez is going to share a little with you, but again, we left links for further reading.
Yes, it's very puzzling in itself when you try to figure out how a Christian saint from a family of saints became associated of all things with witches, which as a Christian she would have been opposed to. And the only explanation I can come up with is that she died on May Day itself, and it's like the traditions, early traditions of May Day became incorporated into her and the relics that she performs as a saint. When you look into the powers she displays, the powers have to do with weather control, healing, navigation at sea. Those are fairly typical powers of pagan deities. Several in particular come to mind from Greek and Nordic pantheons. In the Nordic pantheon, we could possibly see the goddess Hel, or some would reconstruct her as Nehalia, and some would consider her to be a form of Nearthus, but whatever you call that goddess, and the Brothers Grimm have varying opinions about that. It is a goddess that has that kind of a control over healing, over resurrection, over the earth itself in some instances. So then we also have, of course, the Mount Broken, like Morticia said, and had it been a Celtic festivity, then the devil in question would no doubt be Cernunnos, because we're talking about also the Germanic version. This type of devil would most certainly be the god known as Wotan, a form of the Nordic Odin. And for that reason, perhaps, Goethe in his influential Faust writes down the scene where on Mount Brocken the witches gather, and they gather to greet their master and holy master Odin, who is supposed to be reunited with his beloved Freya. And that is a symbolic representation of some of the traditions having to do with the May Day and with that festivity, because Freya was known, of course, as the goddess of fertility in part. You can also link it to a later invention of the tarot card, the Lovers, which has to do with reunion of male, female opposites and such. So all of that lore seems to congregate on that mountain, and even the Christian attempts to eradicate it did not succeed, and the pagan earlier tradition of fertility, of new life, of the death of winter that is personified as Frau Holle, who seems to have become herself a form of Walpurga. That all of those traditions became commemorated in the tradition of Walpurgis. Even the lighting of fires, it is basically encouraging new life of spring to be born. So it is all very interesting, and it is all connected, like Morticia said.
A point of interest, Saint Walpurga also has, she has a shrine in Bavaria now, and she also has one, interestingly enough, in Colorado. So that was kind of like, I didn't expect to see a saint's shrine for her in the U.S. So that's just interesting if anyone wants to go and celebrate that way if in the area. So yeah, if you do anything interesting for this half Halloween, anything spooky for spring and Halloweeny, do let us know. We are probably going to enjoy Witch's Flying Ointment and do some sort of fun magic and just enjoy the fun, wild energy in the air that is so reminiscent of our favorite holiday, Halloween. So many people do half Christmas in July. This is our half Halloween on April 30th, and we hope you enjoy yours, and happy Walpurgisnacht.